Hey guys, New York Dan here today, and I'm tackling a task on the Mustang. Spark plug gets fouled. It starts idling rough, right? I know what's going on, and this is a common problem with V8's. I'm going to tell you what's causing it. I looked a few years ago. There is no information on YouTube like this. This is the only thing you're going to see on the whole channel until people copy me, because I couldn't find it anywhere. This is a messed up problem with these V8 engines. I'm going to show you exactly what plug fouls and what's going on. I got this weird shirt on today. This is one of my girlfriend's shirts. I put it on because it's black. And this is going to, I might trash the shirt trying to do this. All right, let's take a look at what's going on here. So, on the V8 engine, you have usually the engine's installed banked like this, right? Toward the back of the car. Now, believe it or not, I have the same problem on my boat. Instead of being in a car, it's got the outdrive back there, and it's sort of banked that way. The whole problem is it's got a system called PCV. It stands for positive crankcase ventilation. What it does, it actually airs out the gases that get into your crankcase. Combustion gases. It's called blow-by. They blow by the piston rings when you have massive pressure in the cylinders when the engine fires. Small percentage blows by the rings. As the engine gets older, this gets worse and worse until, if you have a really worn out engine, it will barely run, and there's like a volcano of gases coming out of the crankcase. Now, when the cars are brand new, the rings seal very tightly, the gaps, and there's little grooves that these rings are in around the top of the pistons or the sides of the pistons. Those are all very tight, and you're not going to have this kind of problem with a new engine. So what happens is the vapors are sucked in this system. It has a PCV valve. The gases are sucked into the intake. This is on all engines, not just V8. They all have some kind of a system. The PCV valve on mine, this hose goes to it. It's right on the top of the valve cover down there. It's just mounted almost like right in the valve cover. All that is, it's a little rattle valve with a spring, and it has like a restrictor when you're at idle and there's a ton of vacuum. Depending upon the conditions, it will restrict how much flow is coming out, because if you had all the air going through the crankcase, especially with a carbureted car, it would throw off your mixture settings for rich lean. But anyway, not to get into too many details about it, that valve, what it does, it has a little spring also, so when you are under high load, like you're accelerating hard, it actually will, I believe it restricts the flow under that kind of condition as well. You have to have certain conditions for it to really open up to air out the engine. I think it's under medium load when you have high vacuum. It really opens up and it airs out the engine. The point being, this keeps moisture out of the crankcase. When you burn gasoline, not too many people know this, but if you burn a gallon of gasoline, it actually creates more than a gallon of water. Yep, that's right. Now with diesels, they burn much drier, they burn much leaner, they have a lot more airflow. Gasoline, it runs under a vacuum a lot of times, so this becomes very important with gas. Now, because of that, the oil vapor and those PCV gases, they're going into the intake, and this is my hose right here where it goes in. It doesn't get distributed evenly. It goes into the intake manifold. It condenses. Oil gets in there. Oil condenses from that vapor. It finally gets to the cylinders again. It goes through the intake ports, the valving, the intake valves. into the combustion chambers and it's burnt up. That's the theory. Unfortunately, it's not distributed evenly. It would be better if they had a manifold going to each cylinder just for the PCV gases with small tubes. That would be a great system to use. You could possibly even, yeah, you could build that, but the reason they don't do it, it's too complex. This is cheaper, and if you have a newer engine, it's not going to matter. However, on an older engine like this, and the one in my boat, it's a fair amount of blow-by gases. It burns oil. That oily intake manifold from all those gases, the oil flows back, I guess because of the angle of the engine too. And maybe the jetting, like how that flows into the intake manifold, positioning of it. My boat with a carburetor does the exact same thing. It always ends up on this side over here, the driver's side of the car, the same side of the boat. And I'm trying to remember, I got to get that boat going. I believe that's the port side. It would be with the outdrive back there. So that's where the plug gets the worst. So instead of changing the whole set of spark plugs, most likely the others are okay. They don't have a ridiculous amount of miles on them, maybe about like 25,000 miles, 20,000. And this car takes these plugs that are double platinum. The reason for this is because it has these coil packs with wires, and some of the plugs actually fire backward. If you have coil on plug, you're not going to have that problem. But still, the double platinum's a good idea. I'm opening this plug up now. I'm going to show you what the deal is. Okay, so on this plug, if we can get a good shot of this, on this end electrode, it's usually when you just get a regular platinum plug or iridium, this is just regular metal. It might be copper that's coated with something. But you see that little disc that's built into the end of this plug? That is actually a little piece, a circular piece of platinum. And then there's another circular piece on the tip of that electrode that's in that white ceramic. Just the tip of it. Those are the two sparking points. That's where the plug would wear the most. Now, this car, because it fires in both directions, some of the plugs burn backward. They recommend double platinum. That's what it came from the factory. It came with those. They're not that much more than copper plugs, to be honest, especially a brand like Autolite. Even actually with this car, even using a copper plug, a cheap copper only plug would be fine, because these things, the reason why they use platinum electrode, they're designed for 100,000 mile use. Now on an older engine, you're never going to get to that because the plugs get like too dirty or fouled. Now I guarantee you, when I take that end plug out, it's going to look terrible. I'm going to pause the camera and do that right now. I have this is what you need to do it. I have this thing. It's got one of those like little flex joints on the end. I love those. The wobble joints. The end of this is, you can see how it's tapered. And that little ball holds it on. It's tapered, so it gives you a little more flexibility. Now, oh, by the way, this is a spark plug socket. Do not use a regular socket. Inside here, I don't know if we can capture it. Yeah, I think, oh, there we go. There's actually a rubber piece in there, like a piece of rubber hose almost. That pads the ceramic insulator of the spark plug. Okay, get yourself a real spark plug socket. Most cars use this size too. It's 5/8 inch. Don't try to use just a regular depot socket. 9 times out of 10, you're going to end up cracking that spark plug if you try to tighten it or it goes the wrong way. You need that rubber padding. Okay, so the thing I love about this Ford Mustang There's several things I'm going to show you with the spark plug, but one thing, just while I have it here, I love the fact that the coolant tank is clear. I can just look at this without even taking the cap off and know that my coolant level's good. The power steering, they put it in a plastic canister. I can just look at this and see the level. I know that's good. You know, this thing is designed so well in that respect. And the engine oil, very easy. I love this. It's got a cable type oil stick. Most oil sticks, they're just metal and they're hard to get back in and stuff. I just pull this thing on out right there. Well, it's a little bit of glare, but I can see that the engine's got plenty of oil in it. Just like that. And it goes right back in because it's a cable. One of the other things that's so good about this engine, the spark plugs, they're right on top of the engine. Here's one of the boots right here. I just lift these boots out straight up and I can change the spark plug out in a couple minutes without taking any other pieces of the engine off, which I'm gonna do right now. Just pulled the spark plug boot out. One thing you wanna do is get dielectric grease. You can get a whole tube of it. Put it on the end here. Put it around where it seals here. It keeps moisture out of your spark plug hole. I just put this right down the damn hole, right? Slowly turn it and press down a little bit on here and you'll feel it when it grips the plug. Now all I gotta do is just loosen this plug and I put never sees on the threads so I know it will be loose. People blame, they say, oh, these Fords, the plugs get stuck or they blow out. No, that's because you have a bad mechanic working on it. He never put never sees on the threads. He did a crappy job. No grease on the threads at all. And then years later when they change the plugs again, you have somebody strip it. The plugs are seized and when you turn it hard, it messes it up because it's an aluminum head. That's exactly what happens. And they also are notorious if you have somebody that over tightens the plugs. I don't know what their problem is. They have a lot of anger or something. They over tighten the plug and then they strip the aluminum. Yeah, it came out easy. I used both hands off camera because I just want to like keep it. You know how you don't want to put like pressure on that porcelain insulator thing? Yeah. I just held the shaft with one hand just so it wouldn't put too much pressure on that spark plug. Now I'm just gently doing it by hand and we're gonna see how bad this plug got. This literally took me less than a minute to take out. Less than a minute. Here's the plug right here. Yeah, that's what I kind of thought it would look like. You can see how dirty it gets. You see all that oil too on the threading? That's probably because, well, I put never sees on there, but a lot of oil gets in that back cylinder. You can see how dirty that got. Maybe I can even show you, like if we bring it to the sun here. Let's see if that helps. Put it into the sun. You can, I don't know if that's gonna help much. You can see how messed up it got. Yeah. It's seriously dirty. Time for a new plug. It's from burning a lot of oil. That's what that's from. Now, I'm going to show you something else. This cost like literally, well, with all this inflation, it probably costs like $10 now. It used to only cost like $1. Go to AutoZone or wherever you go, you get a spark plug. gapping gauge. You put this in the gap, and what you can actually do is you can use it with the old plug, twist it till you feel it stop. It gets thicker and thicker as you twist it here, right? And it tells you what the gap is. You'll know what the gap is on the old plug, especially with platinum. The gap doesn't really change much. And then what we got to do is we got to set the gap on this new plug. That's what the new plug looks like. For reference, well, I showed you with the platinum before, but now we got to use this gauge and we just got to set this. Okay, so I put it into the gauge and it looks like the gap is close to 0.07. Now originally I think it said set the gap to 0.065. Open the gaps up to 0.065 on these plugs, or 0.060, somewhere in that range. The reason is I have performance coils on here made by Screamin' Demon. And when I got the coils, they said you want to open up your plug gap a little to get maximum benefit. A bigger plug gap creates a larger spark. It helps the engine burn leaner when you're idling, you know. I'm thinking improve fuel economy. However, under load, if you don't have enough high voltage, what happens is when you're under higher compression, the spark will not fire if the gap is too big. That's why there's a certain sweet zone on this. You don't want to go too big. Years ago, when in the 1970s, when they first started about fuel economy and leaner burning and all that, they had engines where they were setting the gap as high as like, I think 0.08, 0.09. They were really making big gaps on the plugs and trying to, like, you know, they were trying to burn lean with crude tuning systems. They didn't have the high tech. The computer age wasn't quite here yet with the more sophisticated systems to monitor everything, like the oxygen sensors, the computer tuning. So they were trying to use a very lean carb setting and put bigger gaps and higher voltage with their ignition. So now the best thing to do is follow your manufacturer's specs. If you have factory coils or whatnot, if you get aftermarket, follow what they tell you. I'm probably going to set that gap at 0.063, something like that. And then I'm going to put the new plug back in. And of course, before I put it in, I got to find my Never Seas bottle. We definitely got to put that on the threads because you don't want it to get stuck in here. And like I said, you'll never have a problem with the plugs blowing out of your engine. That only happens if you've had people that they don't know what they're doing working on your car. Unfortunately, that's the problem. You take your car to a bad mechanic. You don't know if the mechanic's good or bad. You can't tell how good a work they do. You're not there watching over them. You get a bad one, they can actually turn your money, they can turn your cash into trash. You're paying them cash to get the damn thing repaired. They'll turn your car into trash. They'll take your cash and turn your car into trash. It bites. Okay, guys, I got the stuff out. Here's a few more tips for you. First of all, here's what the dielectric tune-up grease looks like. Don't just get a little packet. You can just spend a couple dollars and get this whole tube. This will last you like 30 years or something, or 20 years. If you're just doing your own cars, you know. Then the Never Seas compound, okay? It's called aluminum anti-seize lubricant. They used to make this with like lead and different things would be in it. It was probably even better, but I guess now it's like not anything with lead in it people are afraid of. You know, just don't eat it. That's the thing. Wash, you know, wear these gloves. Look, this is what I wear. I'm not gonna do car stuff without wearing these gloves. Your hand, just for the fact that it's gonna be easier to wash your hands. Now, I'm not endorsed by Permatex. Just so happens these are both made by Permatex. You can probably get both at AutoZone. One more tip for you, get a really good magnet tool like this. If your spark socket gets like kind of stuck on the plug with that rubber that's in there, right? Now, if you use that dielectric grease, you're probably not going to have this problem. But if someone did it before, the socket could get stuck on the plug. What you do is take the extension out and put this on the bottom of the socket. It will pull it, a really strong magnet. It will pull that socket right out. That's another tip I got for you guys. Yup, I give out all this good advice. It's a good channel. Subscribe and hit thumbs up for me, definitely. And by the way, yeah, get yourself some gloves. You can get these now cheap. Now that we're past the pandemic, the prices went back down a little on these gloves. I see a guy on YouTube. I don't know if you guys know about Detroit diesels. Well, any diesel, even Mercedes. The guy's working changing these filters in his boat, jet black diesel oil. He doesn't even have gloves on. I'm like, what's wrong with this guy? Yeah, you believe that? Just get some of these gloves. Really, I mean, especially if you're doing like an oil, something with diesel oil. Can't believe it. You'll spend more money on soaps trying to wash your hands. So anyway, guys, hey, hope I helped solve some problems today. Like I said, I didn't see this anywhere on YouTube. That rear cylinder toward the driver's side, that's what to look for. Check that plug. I'm going to change that out, see how the car runs. I'll let you guys know in the next video. Rest of the plugs I'm leaving alone. They don't have that many miles on them. All right, guys. I'll see you in the next one. This is New York Dan for Ben's Products. There goes my mailman. I got to go see what he left. Hopefully it's good. Hit thumbs up, guys.